Greetings, and today I have another video for you guys. So the 100 subscriber special will have to be a bit delayed for a couple of days because renovations are still kind of going on. Plus the developer stream did happen today, so I'm going to be covering that. That'll be tomorrow's video. I think this is going to be covered in 2 parts. Just because I don't really want to upload like a 50-minute long video because it might be a bit too much. So I'll be doing this in 2 parts. And I'll just stop literally halfway through the video. Before I sort of get started with this, a couple things I just want to say. I already went through this developer stream, so I just thought I want to give you guys my I thought I'd give you guys my thoughts on it. And secondly, if you guys did enjoy this video, please leave a like and continue subscribing to the channel for support. It really helps me out, gives me more motivation. The fact that you guys are interacting with me, whether it's through likes, dislikes, comments, you know, friending me on GOG, coming across my streams every now and then. Streams will be covered in the in the special video as to like where I'll be going in terms of Twitch and YouTube and stuff like that. So I think that's all really I gotta say. Oh, also I got my second gaming channel. If you guys want to go check that out and subscribe as well, we are playing some games over there. So yeah, that's about it. And let's go through this developer stream video.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah.
I start partway through because
I like that you have a shirt. I feel I didn't dress for it.
I started somewhat partway through because my assumption is you guys have already watched the whole thing. So you know, let's get on with it.
2020 new man.
New man.
Right.
All right. So we will talk about update 5.1, which is coming tomorrow. Simple as that. The overall season transition also happening tomorrow.
Yes.
Easy. But before we get into that,
they didn't have any patch notes, so I couldn't go off the patch notes. I have to go from here.
What we're up to, what we're kind of doing. So what happened last week? We launched Thronebreaker on Switch.
Yeah. Yay.
I played it a lot.
Yep.
It actually feels really good on the Switch.
It does. That's something that we were working on last year.
Yep.
It just made sense.
Yep.
That's
happy
it.
to find out.
Story. I do say that like some of the developers are really passionate about adding that extra better balancing in the higher difficulties.
Yeah.
So hopefully people are enjoying that. And if people really want it, we'll end up putting it on all platforms eventually. But there has to be a demand for it.
True that.
Yeah.
All right.
That's true.
Let's address something important.
I love Thronebreaker. It was a lot of fun.
On Android. Because if you look at our social media, number one thing,
No,
Android,
really?
Android,
No.
when.
I wonder if people...
This kind of made me mad because it's kind of the main reason why I got an iPhone in the first place is because Gwent came out on it first. So I had to swallow my pride because I really don't like Apple. Might be a hot take, so I guess I dislike this video because of that. But I'm just an Android guy. I'm just more used to using its interface. But yeah, because Gwent came out on iOS first, I went ahead and got an iPhone 11 and immediately downloaded Gwent. Yeah, so I'm still not liking it too much because I'm still not used to how it works. But yeah, it is what it is. Just thought I'd make that remark.
Times it'll just change our schedule for
Android. It's like Q1 2020, Q1 2020.
No, we get it.
We
We appreciate your passion and your excitement for Android, and we really appreciate it. I can say that we have the game fully ported on Android. Now we're in the process of optimizing, so it runs on more than just the highest end of devices. And polishing and bug fixing, and we will very soon enter into pre-registrations, preparing for...
You guys can't tell, but it smells like paint in here. That's why I don't want to do the whole 50-minute
we are
video.
On schedule. Things are going great for Android. There's no problem.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome news. Cool.
But keep asking. It won't change much, but if it makes you feel great, why not? We're fine with it.
Since we had January, and January is kind of a month where you start planning and thinking about what's going to happen throughout the year. And now we have February, so it's kind of not January, so we shouldn't be doing yearly plans. But since we're late with this, so I mean, we're not late, we're on time. But you get my drift. So, what's the overall idea heading into 2020? Like, what's the overall thing? Like, I know there's some team changes where we're kind of moving around, forming new teams responsible for different aspects of the game, but that's kind of internally. What about externally? Like, kind of roadmap feeling, like, what do we want to do this year? Like, what's the overall vision that you have?
That was a very longly worded question. Okay,
yes.
let me see if I can get
like
to what you're asking for. That's okay. We love you, Buddha. So, in December, after we were finishing up Merchants of Ophir, we were spending a lot of time thinking about what we wanted to do this year. So we started thinking about not only what we wanted to do, but how we wanted to do it. So, quality of life and not working like crazy, especially when you're updating a game every month, is really important to me and to trying the team. And while it's impossible to completely avoid crunch. We made some really big strides into keeping the balance of life a bit healthier for the team. But still, I think we could do better. So this year, we're kind of structuring our approach so that we can do more than just try to brush out a whole bunch of expansions really fast, but still actually do more from a player perspective as well. Launch more features, more polish, accomplish more. So we've been changing a bit of the way how we work internally, so it slowed us down a bit for December and January, but now things have all settled into place. We're really kicking into high gear. We made the conscious decision to not go for 4 expansions again this year. That's just not going to happen. It's going to be quite a bit more of a delay between the next one. It really took a lot out of us to do 4, and I don't want to keep rushing it. I want the expansions to be of higher quality.
And yeah, he makes a good point there, because honestly, like, I already find just analyzing the cards and thinking of ways to make them better already hard to do in the first place. So just imagine like a full team of the game developers trying to do it themselves. Not to mention trying to listen to what you guys have to say, because some of us can get really controversial when it comes to card nerfs or buffs. Like, some people love morale so much that they want to keep them. Obviously, the majority says to nerf them, but like, you know, you'll still get that, you know, that debate versus whether a card is good or not, whether they should nerf a card or nerf a certain archetype or boost a certain archetype. There's just a lot of factors to consider. So less expansions, but more focusing on the balance of the cards that already exist is a really good idea, and I actually agree with them with that.
I don't want to just rush out a bunch of expansions with a bunch of dead cards just to say that we're growing the card pool. I'd rather that we do regular updates like we're going to do this time.
Yes.
Although we won't do as big of a balance update every month. I'd like to keep the game fresh every month. It's really important. But then focus on the expansions being as amazing as possible, and the ideas and the card art already coming forth, and everything that's happening for the first expansion this year is something we're all really internally excited for.
Awesome idea.
And I can't wait for you guys to see it, and hopefully that'll go great. There's a lot of non-expansion related stuff that we want to do this year, that some of it will be a big surprise, and why the roadmap felt maybe a bit empty for some people when we talked about it late last year.
They're very vague.
We don't really want to talk
it makes
too
sense.
much
It makes
and
sense.
spoil the fun of the stuff that we want to do.
Make Arena great
Just
again,
kind of the
please.
surprise expansion,
I want to
just
cover more
surprises
Arena.
that we want to save for you this year, and unfortunately, they're quite big, so we have a good chunk of time on some pretty ambitious, cool stuff we want to do this year, but we can't quite talk about in the near future.
I've also seen an overall shift, especially with 5.1, which is the update we'll be talking about today, that instead of nerfing a lot of things, we're actually buffing a lot of things.
Well, I mean,
kind of bringing...
some things need to be nerfed.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, some things are just
still, like, if you think about it, the overall approach always has been seen by our community like, oh, you guys are just nerfing stuff to the ground. Well, actually, we're buffing some stuff to bring it out.
Mostly things will get stronger. Try to add more variety into the meta that might have felt stale, especially since we didn't do much of an update over the holidays. So we thought, you know, this is time.
Yeah, I have a feeling this is going to be a big update.
Yeah.
Big update, this one, I think.
A shake-up in the meta. I like that one. Another thing to mention is with this update, so 5.1, we are dropping full mill value for reworked cards. What's the overall idea behind that?
It's something that we never...
Before they get into that, not doing full mill value on cards that are getting reworked is okay, actually, and that is because it is actually very easy to get resources to either buy kegs or buy craft cards from scraps, especially through the reward tree system, because it's not that hard to get points. Honestly, you just need to play pretty often, and even if you haven't played in a while, like, they'll give you rewards or like stuff for coming back. They'll give you points, they'll give you, you know, scraps and ore and stuff like that. Honestly, it's just a matter of playing, and something I really like about this game is you don't need to be playing constantly every day to, you know, collect all the cards needed in a short amount of time, at least when you compare it to games like Hearthstone, where it's pretty much kind of impossible unless you pay a little bit along the way to collect cards. Whereas this one, if you play constantly, that's more for, you know, getting into the pro ranks, getting into you know, those challenger tournaments. But in terms of collecting cards, you know, you can take your time, and even if you don't play for 5 or 6 days, you can come back and you still have your collection pretty much intact. So I like that they're not doing that. It's not really necessary. It's more of a redundancy, I think,
really
just to collect more resources.
It felt like something that was a good idea on paper, but had a lot of repercussions. You'll see us making interesting decisions throughout the year because we made this decision. Other things that we were afraid to do because of the full mill value. For example, we're thinking about auto milling extra copies in some cases, but like there's some people that are happy with this change from what I saw, and that reinforces a bit that I think we're heading in the right direction.
You kind of spoiled it on
they
Twitter.
were afraid of milling cards, which I think is not the way it should be. You know, trying to play this game to find out what's going to be full mill value, that never felt really great to me.
Agreed.
And I think with the way that you can progress in your collection, which we'll try to always remain as generous, if not more generous with, then I don't feel like it was a very valuable policy for us. It was just hurting us more than helping us. And I know some people might not agree with that, but hopefully we can move past it.
Yeah. What I didn't like the most is some people posting and bragging that, oh, you can go over the system and you can abuse it. And
that was also really
bad.
Feels bad for us.
It feels really, really bad, especially for some other people in the community where they're getting this negative.
There is one thing that I'm seeing right now is we decided to premify the starting tactical advantage.
Yes.
There's no more non-premium tactical.
Oh yeah, tactical advantage doesn't have premium.
For that.
Didn't have a premium, I should
I
say.
don't know why people are asking for us to premify things.
I like
We're listening. Premifying all the tokens.
You know how it is.
Is something that is a stretch goal that if we manage to do, I would love to do. But again, it's not an easy flip of a switch. But it is something that I'm actively looking into us potentially doing.
You can actually show it if you guys want to see it.
So we have premified tactical advantage, guys.
Oh my God, it happened.
I have not
Best
promised.
match ever.
I have not promised premified tokens.
Yeah.
I have no
100% win rate
when it would happen, but I have agreed in my mind that it would be cool that when your board is covered in tokens, that they would be premified as well. So
I see that the emails I sent made it to the right person finally.
Yeah. I just wish it was a bit easier and faster for us to do. Premiums are a lot of work, guys.
Yeah, really, they are a lot of work. They're a lot of work.
But it looks great, so that's cool.
Yay! So because everybody's like, you know what? I have a full deck, fully decked out premium, but the tactical advantage is not premium. And my HG is like, oh no.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair.
So that's cool.
That's fair.
That was worth mentioning. It's awesome.
Perfect. All right. So I want to get into the update. I mean, we'll be going faction by faction, but first we'll start with game fixes, then some of the new features, and then we'll start with neutral.
Again, this will be a fairly large update, so we'll be doing highlights today.
Yes.
We won't go through everything. If you want all the details, you'll have to look at the patch notes, which should be out
tomorrow.
Okay.
Tomorrow with the update.
Awesome.
Yes. So game fixes starting off first. So this is something that we don't have to show, we can talk about.
Yep.
So incoming triggers can be canceled out. So cards that have targeting and income, like dip in the pawn tab, for example, will allow users to choose a target before committing to play the card.
Yeah, this was something that bothered us when we were making Novigrad expansion and Syndicate, and we just hadn't had the chance to go back and fix it.
Yeah.
But now the income will properly work in such a way that you're not committed to playing the card the second you put it in. It's a small quality of life thing, but I think it should be appreciated by people who play Syndicate.
Yeah,
no, I think it makes sense. I think it makes sense.
Change. So it's a subtle change.
Because you don't want to make those misplays because of game mechanics.
Added tooltip system to cards in board for mobile version of the game. So what does that mean?
Yeah,
that's very cryptic.
This one's going to be hard to explain with words, so people will hopefully experience it when they're mobile players.
You explained it to me today. It was very
when we were making the mobile version, when you tap on a card, we were afraid there'd be confusion between activating an order and trying to see what a card is. But then ultimately, leader abilities, and as a new player, we felt it was really hard to tell what cards do. And it was a bit inconsistent with the way the rest of our UI worked. So in this update, the first tap on a card will now show tooltips.
Yes.
Second tap will activate orders. So if you want to use an order through tapping, you can just double tap or drag. That works as before. But generally, tooltips should appear in a nicer way for new players after this update on mobile.
Okay, cool.
It might take a bit of adjusting for people who are used to the current paradigm, but it felt for everyone who tested internally that you got used to it very fast, and it felt like what it should have been from the beginning. So hopefully this transition is just a nice upgrade for everyone. But if you're having difficulty with this, let us know. We'll be listening, and there's always a chance we'll change something.
It's nice, especially that we're doing things for new players, where we've seen an influx of new players, which is awesome. So.
Yeah, no, I can totally feel what they're saying because, I've gotten people that have, messaged me whether on stream or in the YouTube comments saying that they're new to the game. They want to know, advice of how to play certain decks and stuff. And it actually makes me excited about the growth of this game. So I like that they're definitely putting that to consideration. Hopefully they'll give more sort of some support for beginner players. Because I know they might come across some sort of, let's say, maybe matchmaking issue where it's like, oh, they're taking on this guy that's collected a crap ton of cards or something. So, continue.
We've seen an influx of new players, which is awesome. So, and probably more coming with that.
There's a cut because I paused and then I ended recording. So it's just going to be a continuation.
Matches, the opponent's nickname will be hidden until the final results screen. So
that's an interesting one. They're trying to prevent stream sniping.
It will get resolved, or you will not see your opponent's nickname throughout the whole,
including the results screen.
Especially because you also find that sometimes you play the same player twice, and they're playing with the same deck, so you kind of already know what you're up against.
In the next update, at the latest, if not in a
so
hotfix, but
that's pretty good.
Generally, we want to hide your opponent's nickname in a match in pro rank to reduce, let's call it, the temptation to do win trading.
Yes, or contacting that player, talking to
them. Oh, win trading, yeah.
It's also hopefully great for streamers.
That also happens a lot.
Opponent will know who they're against, go onto their stream and snipe it. It's a nice, hopefully, little quality of life for the upper echelons of ranked players.
I mean, people are still gonna play Gwent while watching streamers anyway, so.
Another thing that we're doing because we're working on
but you know, you can't do anything about that.
Masters because we'll be updating everything to show off season 2. Yeah. And the first thing that will be there is we won't be showing also faction MMR, so you won't see the splits for Monster, Skellige, Syndicate, blah, 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 blah. So you won't see that, you'll just see the number of matches and the total MMR. So that's one thing, and I think that's...
I hope that's not the case for like your own profile, because I kind of want to see my own split MMRs, so I know what to improve on. I hope they're just talking about like when you're looking at someone else's, like when you're looking at the ranking for the MMRs.
Yes, that is something that we're working
on. For esports, for pro rank anyway.
Talk a little bit more about it.
From a client perspective, we're pretty much ready to go with this update. So the game client itself can support the tournament platform. We're just finishing up the actual user experience on the website. I don't have an exact date that we'll launch it. We probably will run the first qualifiers without it, unfortunately. So that's a bit sad, but we'd rather wait till it's ready and test it properly before we release it. But it is...
I mean, it's a big thing. It needs to be very fleshed out.
We don't want to rush out something that falls flat. We want it to come out as good as possible. So, yeah.
All right, next topic. Something that was in the previous patch notes that we said is going to start with this season transition, and it will. So now losing less ranks at the start of a new season. So from ranks 1 to 13, players will lose 2 ranks. Yeah. From 14 to 23, 1 rank. And 0 ranks from 25 to 30. As for pro rank players, you will lose 3 ranks apart from the top 500 players.
So, and I mean, this was a topic that we saw a lot of you talking about, is the D-ranking was a bit too aggressive at the end of the seasons. It felt bad, so hopefully...
Yeah, you had to work pretty hard to go from rank 5 to rank to pro rank again. Yeah, I understand the struggle.
Yeah. Simple as that. So, you want to get into cards?
Let's get into
Now we get to the juicy stuff.
I know what to start with. I saw it...
This is probably one of the few provision-only changes that we will talk about today, but I think everyone has been talking about this card more than any other one. It is, of course, Redea.
Redea, the one and only.
We did not want to overly nerf her. We wanted to try a smaller nerf before going very crazy. She has a 2 provision increase. She's from 10 to 12. That's it.
That's it.
If anyone's expecting a bigger nerf, sorry, we don't want to nerf a card until it's unplayable.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay, so this Redea nerf is actually very interesting, and because I kind of mentioned this in the cards that should be nerf video that I did, I think just yesterday. Well, I did it yesterday on the recording, 2 days from the day this is gonna get uploaded. So Redea, her in terms of power to provision, yes, she was very powerful. You'd be going up to like 13 or 12 for the provision of 10, and that was just insanity. Moving her up to 12, yes, she's gonna get, let's say, 13 for 12 or 12 for 12, depending on what stratagem you play. That is in terms of power to provision. But if we're talking about synergy, it is still relatively powerful because you can still... This is still useful in Feign Death for scoia'tael, where you can still spawn the scoia'tael Neophyte stratagem, and you can still trigger the chapter of Feign Death. For creating the neutral stratagem, it'll still be 13 for 12. So in terms of its gap between power and provision, yes, it is a bit more balanced. But when it comes to synergy with like faction abilities, like faction with certain decks, and especially with the faction stratagem that's required, it can still be quite powerful. But I like this change, even though, like, I mean, I didn't 100% expect there was going to be a complete rework. But yeah, at least they did something to Redea, because she was definitely, like, people were definitely saying like Redea was way too powerful. And again, based on my explanation I said in the last in that cards that should be changed video, she is the face of the expansion. You can't just kill. Why would you just kill the face of an expansion? Like, they want to make her so playable that people will want to come in and play her from this new expansion, and then they'll do something to her at the end of, or at the next update. Again, it's kind of, I don't know if that's what they were doing. It's what I thought. It's kind of, sort of the justification that I use as to why I thought it was okay for them to make a card this powerful, especially with her being the face. You know, it's kind of like LeBron James with the NBA, but then again, that's completely different. You can't nerf that. Bad comparison, but yeah.
Is that it? Like comments, it's fair.
If it continues to be crazy, we'll look at it again. But right now, we think
I don't think so. After seeing the other patch, after seeing the other updates.
Hold on, guys. There's a lot more coming.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's gonna be a lot more.
Change her, let's say, frequency in the map.
What's the general approach, Jason, for this?
Well, we touched it on a bit more. We want to bring up cards that are less played.
Yeah.
And try to buff them up a bit.
Yeah, to make them more appealing.
Without, touching every single unplayed card, but we picked some of the longest untouched ones, or
that's fair.
General,
I like that.
Just tried to give some love.
Yeah. I'm liking this already.
Tearing things down, which I think was something that always made the game feel worse in the past. We're going to try and build some stuff up a bit.
Plus some things with bronze specials, so kind of tweaking the provision on them.
Well, there's some bronzes that are like 8 provisions, and so their effects are really scary, and you can have 2 of them. So you'll see that we've touched a few of those. I think there's one, if I skip ahead a bit here on our list, is Adrenaline Rush, for example.
I can actually show that one.
Adrenaline Rush.
It's an interesting
was a
one.
Really strong effect. We were afraid to give it a lower provision as a bronze. We haven't touched every single bronze like this, although we were tempted to. So we reworked this card. It is now boost an allied unit by 8 for 5 provision if there are no other units on that row.
So with Adrenaline Rush, when we're looking at a power of 8 for the provision of 5, that reminds me of the Crow Clan Druid from Skellige, because you boost 4 to 2, or you boost 2 to 2 beasts, and it's 4 power for the provision of 5, which makes it 8 for 5. It does have a condition though. You can't have any other units on that row. So that'll be kind of interesting, because it kind of forces Adrenaline Rush to be a relatively early play, which kind of gives your opponent a lot of means to, deal some damage to it, or use toll removal on it. That kind of, I don't know how I feel about that, but then again, it is a provision for 5, so I guess that makes sense as to why they're giving it a condition like that, where it can be easily destroyed by toll removal, or it can be damaged down by damage output cards. But it can also be used to protect your engines, which could relatively be nice. But you just gotta be careful of that toll removal, and especially status. That'll make sense why in the next few minutes. So.
We feel this is more in line to what a neutral bronze should be. We know
that's
that
fair.
We're losing potentially some Mimi crazy stuff.
Resilience is a pretty powerful status, to tell you that much. It's super powerful status, Resilience.
So,
if you can keep it alive, of course.
This is an example of a bronze just being brought into the lower provision range.
Yeah.
We feel like if a bronze goes into like 7 or 8 provisions, that it's starting to be more like a gold card in its effect.
Yeah.
That's true.
We're trying to avoid that, if possible.
All right. Cool. You want to move on to the poison?
Yeah, poison tweaks. I don't know what you as a community were expecting for us to do poison. It's clear that it is receiving a lot of love from you guys. You guys love poison. You want more poison, right? Let's add more poison to the game. Lower its provision cost. More poison. We don't want to overly nerf poison, so we did 2 small neutral provision changes in poison. And first off, with Maral having 1 increased provision.
No.
So we're valuing his poison a bit stronger than before. And the second one, which I don't know if we need to bring up on screen, would be the King Cobra will also go from 4 to 5 provisions.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so they did tweak the neutral poisons, because poison wasn't becoming a distinguishable status anymore. Now with these 2 cards, you could play poison in pretty much any faction. Like the certain factions had their own cards that could do poison. You got scoia'tael that could do poison. You got Syndicate that has some poison. You got Nilfgaard that has some poison. None of the other factions really has any poison at all. So these 3, Maral and the King Cobra cards, were really just sort of enforcing the poison that already existed in those 3 specific factions. That's really all they were doing. And not to mention, you got the status Nilfgaard was definitely really powerful because of it. So nerfing Morale actually was pretty good. I enjoyed it. It was also one of the cards that I listed in the cards that needed to be changed or whatever in the cards getting changed video. But yeah, I like that they changed that. And King Korba, thank goodness, became a 5 provision instead of a 4, because even though it was 3 for 4 with poison, the poison was still very powerful, because again, there was just so many cards that could do poison, and it was just insane. Like engine decks were pretty much dead once poison started coming up. Like you had to take an extra precaution to protect your engines through using Purify, just so to stop the poison from happening. So yeah, I like the changes they made, so it's good.
Poison's just a little bit weaker in terms of provision with everything else happening. We'll keep an eye out on poison, see if it's a real issue. There are other cards coming that should maybe help people find answers to poison. For example, Crow's Eye. Yeah. Crow's Eye is being reworked.
That card has not been used in anything in forever. That's insane. I'm not going to pause for every change they make. Probably mostly on the reworks and the exception of those 2.
It is now going to be a 4 provision neutral card.
So it's a crystal skull. It's literally a crystal skull.
So now it'll be easy for any faction to include sort of a pretty good value.
It is an alchemy card, so this could work in Skellige actually. Not even though their purifier is already the most powerful purifier in the game, like in terms of faction specific.
Nasty Doom off of one of its purifiers, for example. I know I had fun, even though I never managed to make it super viable, trying to purify a whole row of crows so that I can get that giant beast buff at the end.
I tried.
But this is...
I should have tried, actually. I should have tried that. I thought about making that as a deck, actually, as a meme deck.
Crow's Eye used to do.
Something like that.
So it might find its way as a tech tool if you feel like poison is overrunning it.
And we just skip one more, which is Epidemic. I'll go to Epidemic then.
Epidemic is another one of the bronze cards we reworked.
It was pretty high in cost.
Again, its effect was so crazy that we had to keep it at the higher provision range. We weren't super fan of it. It wasn't seeing much play. So it is now destroy a 4 provision cost card for 5 provision.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what its power is.
This one's interesting because... Okay, I'm going to pause for this one because this is a complete rework. This one is interesting because destroying a 4 provision unit regardless of power is going to be completely insane. Like... This kind of you kind of don't want to boost up your 4 provision cards anymore. Like, let's say if you're trying to protect an engine from a Scourge or from a Shiru, you'd want to boost something. If you end up boosting a 4 provision card and they play Epidemic on you, that boost is completely dead. So it's kind of leaning players towards, you know, wanting to boost golds or somewhat stronger cards that could also end up getting destroyed themselves by different means. So it's kind of like it's one less safety, because usually, like, if you want to protect, let's say, I don't know, Imlerith or Black Rayla, like one of those engine cards, you'd want to boost them to the point where they don't get destroyed by Toll removal, but also they don't get scorched, so you don't want to make them the completely highest. So you'd want to hit them with boosts, right? Or sorry, you'd want to put your boost somewhere else to sort of shield them from those removal cards. With Epidemic, now those safety nets from the 4 provisions, like if you had any 4 provisions you wanted to boost, that safety net is gone. If someone places Epidemic on that power is now completely gone. It's not a big deal because if it's not an engine, sure, it doesn't really matter. Your engines are still protected, but still, that kind of boost is still, like, it kind of encourages the spread boost even more now. Like, instead of committing all your boosts to a certain card, you definitely want to spread that boost to, again, while at the same time shielding yourself from, you know, those tall damage removal cards. You gotta think about this. So those cards are still gonna be super usable in future months to come. So you're still gonna see a lot of control based decks, a lot of aggro decks, and, you know, especially ones that can interact with your opponent's board. It is still a very big deal.
Going into, you actually will see that artifact removal is now something that is neutral only, so a neutral only mechanic.
You'll notice in some things we talk about later that we are removing artifact removal from
Peller
cards. Although
Peller's pretty, or Iris Shade. I think Iris Shade is an artifact removal.
It will be more.
Oh no, sorry, not Iris Shade. Iris von Everett. I think it's just Peller. Oh no, not Peller. What am I saying? Bomb Heaver.
Talk about for neutral.
That's
Bomb Heaver.
For neutral.
Okay.
In terms of the highlights.
Yeah, there's I think at least 15, 20 more
full patch
vision
notes you'll see
power
tomorrow.
changes for.
I think the designers mentioned today it's like 19 cards per faction that are getting like changes. It's crazy.
19 per faction.
So, yeah, it's an
that is
extensive update,
crazy.
So I recommend you read the patch notes.
We'll go
tomorrow.
through maybe two more factions,
see
and
a
then
lot of people
I'll
already
stop part one
commenting
here.
on scenarios. We're not changing scenarios fundamentally with this update.
Yeah.
There's going to be some provision changes on two of them, Monsters and Syndicate, but otherwise
I think so, yeah.
they're not fundamentally changing. Although we will keep an eye on it.
So what? We're moving on to monsters.
So we're making scenarios still very
Monsters.
powerful.
So general approach for monsters.
Especially if they don't get nerfed or they don't get
monsters,
changed. Okay, so they better be doing a lot of
obviously need
boosting
bit of
on
love. We didn't go
certain
too
cards.
crazy with this update for Monsters, but we did take a look at all the Wild Hunt cards.
Yeah.
So we did a pass on the Wild Hunt cards to find ways to make it better.
Yep.
There's unfortunately not enough Wild Hunt cards in the game to make like a full archetype within Wild Hunt cards only, at least for now. So we really embrace dominance.
Spoiler
as the
alert,
theme for Wild Hunt. Let us start with our Immelrith rework. Immelrith is now deploy, set allied unit power to 7. Dominance, set a unit's power to 7 instead. So it can be used to remove.
This is okay, so Imlerith is no longer an engine. It now has an ability of pretty much setting an ally's power to 7 or setting a unit's power to 7 instead. This kind of ability I think is not too bad, and the reason for that is you can use it for two things. You can use it to control an opponent's unit that's getting too out of hand with their power. So if we're talking Oriana, that's an example of a card that can go out of control with its power, where the ceiling is super high if you leave it go untouched. Or maybe cards like the Great Oak, for example, if they choose to get the boost. Or even the cards like the Thirsty Dame, the Great Sword, the Gore Two Blades from Skellige, Dire Mutated Hounds, cards like those that could control their power down to 7. Let's say in like last turn ditch effort to, you know, beat your opponent if they choose to pass. So Imlerith is a good way to sort of, you know, control the power your opponent. So essentially what Imlerith does is the ceiling of Imlerith is as high as your opponent's ceiling. So the higher your opponent's ceiling gets, the higher value Imlerith gets. But the problem is with you can only activate it with dominance, which means you still have to have a higher power unit on your side of the field versus theirs to get that ability off if you want to control one of their cards. Now on the other side, you could also use Imlerith to protect one of your engines. So if you want to protect Nekkarat, if you want to protect, let's say, the Indriga Larvas, if they're in danger of getting destroyed, if you want to protect your the Deathwish engine card that gets boosted every time an engine, what do you call it? Every time a Deathwish card is played. There we go. I was trying to look for the word for it. You can use it to protect, or even I said Nekkarat already. But you can use it to protect those engines by setting their power up to 7 to make it harder for them to get destroyed. Because most engine cards are very vulnerable to getting destroyed. So I like that they did that.
Move something that is very
I think we'll just do fact
dominance.
monsters and then we'll do the other half
it can
tomorrow. Or
buff
I'll
a
do
little one power
the other half in the
token,
other video.
Necker up to 7 as a late last game thing.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a different card. I think its power is also a bit higher. It's now 5 to 7, and its provision
The provision's
is
really
8 to
high.
12, so
It's 12.
Potentially a 14 power play. Well, 13. Yeah, if you hit a 1 power. It can also
13
be
max,
used defensively in some cases.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So
it's a bit of different. I think the next one we should talk about is actually Nithril.
Oh, you want Nithril? Okay.
Yeah, because Nithril, I know that's not the order we thought about earlier, but Nithril is essentially the old Immelrith.
Yeah.
So we moved.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
To Nithril. Nithril is now
no more artifact
damaged
removal.
by 1,
Even though
dominance
Nithril
damaged
I
by
think was
2
the most
instead,
powerful
moved that
artifact
1.
removal.
The reason we did this is we
in terms of
wanted
like
Immelrith to be a
faction
bit more
specific
iconic.
artifact removal
We
cards.
didn't want him to be a simple order or damage card.
Yeah.
But we also felt like this effect needed to continue existing, so we moved it to Nithril, who was artifact removal, which is no longer in Monsters.
So no actual. Yeah,
I actually like this ability.
Yes, he saw play as artifact.
I actually like this ability, but the only reason why it doesn't get used is because, again, status was such a big thing, removal such a big thing, that this card almost never gets to stay long enough for its ability to work. So that's why, like, I like this ability if it could stay on the field long enough. So, you know, you gotta put some
since we
precautions
wanted to
protect
remove that, we wanted to find a new role for him.
And because scenarios aren't getting nerfed, this is gonna remain
right.
getting destroyed. So
this one is not a fundamental rework. I would say it's more of a buff. Immelrith's Wrath works like before. He will damage an enemy unit by the power of your highest allied unit. However, if you control Immelrith, destroy enemy unit instead.
I love this ability. Oh my gosh, I'm actually gonna play monsters even more after this because
the highest unit on the board.
yes, because now with we control Imlerith, destroy an enemy unit instead. So this is similar to I think never mind. I'm not gonna go off and say wrong facts here. But Imlerith's Rat being able to destroy a unit outright can potentially make this ceiling very powerful. Even though Imlerith kind of does that again with your opponent being able to boost. But again, if you can't establish dominance, then you have no problem. Then you have sort of a backup with Imlerith's Rat because you need Imlerith to be on the field for its ability to go off and just outright destroy a unit. So you can destroy, let's say, like a 15 to like 24 power thirsty day. It doesn't matter what the power is. Imlerith's Rat's gonna get so much value out of that. So monsters, it has tall units and it has tall, very, very tall removal. This is a very, very tall removal card. I expect to see a lot of decks with this card running on it with Imlerith. So yeah, I'm looking very forward to that. And I'm going to personally try it myself.
An example of, again, us embracing that a bit is if you look at Wild Hunt Hound. He's also been reworked. He'll be a bit closer to another doggo that we know in Monsters that likes to grow.
Dominance at the end, so there's a boosting engine now for dominance, which is pretty cool.
By 1.
Yeah.
So if you have the highest unit, he will continue growing.
That's good. I like that.
And lastly, I think the last one we changed for Wild Hunt was the Wild Hunt Warrior. Ability changed to deploy damage an enemy unit by 1, dominance, damage it by 3 instead. Again, we felt like
it's kind of similar to the Wild Hunt Navigator ability, is it?
On the warrior,
I think it's like the opposite. Isn't this the opposite of the Wild Hunt Navigator? Because I think Wild Hunt Navigator is boost by 1 and then boost by 3 instead.
A bit. Sorry if that causes confusion, but we feel.
I can't remember. I haven't played Wild Hunt cards in like forever. But yeah, this card has not been touched forever either, which is crazy.
Monsters left again. Most of the cards we're not talking about.
Honorable mentions.
Honorable mentions.
Oh yeah, they do honorable mentions.
Is getting a subtle change. She's becoming melee whenever a unit is destroyed during your turn. Boost self by 2. It is no longer whenever an allied unit. Yep. So now if you destroy an enemy during your turn, she will buff herself by 2.
Yeah.
So this now has some synergy with cards like Nithrol, cards like Gale, Bleed, stuff like that. So she's actually becoming a bit more of a valuable engine card now, which is make her highly desirable. Again, because of status and removal, it's still going to be relatively hard. Not to mention, it's at 4 power, which means it might not be able to stay past the first round, which is kind of what concerns me about this subtle change. Which makes sense. I actually think the Sheetroll should have been a 5 for 9 or even a 5 for 10. But I think at 4, it's just way too vulnerable for removal. So I don't know how I feel about this in terms of the longevity of the Sheetroll of Vergen. But I like that they're reworking it to make it a bit more synergetic with the monsters factions and how they work.
I like her.
And the last major change that we did to monsters was Adastriga. She is now deployed, damage an enemy unit by 2, dominance, damage it by 4 instead.
So it's either going to be a 7 for 7 or a 9 or 7. But the damage by 4 is a lot. Again, this could be used to destroy the Sheetroll if the Sheetroll exists.
But
so
she has significant more power.
I want to be careful of that one too.
So she is much more of an interesting card and fits the dominance archetype.
Cool.
So we're doing a pass on dominance. This is a lot of these changes are keeping in mind what we want to do for the first expansion. I know it's not coming in the very near future, but we're hoping to keep expanding this in the future.
Cool.
Okay, so I'm actually going to end the first part right here, but there's a couple things I want to say. Well, there's only one big thing really, and this is kind of going with the philosophy of what they see these cards looking like, and I have a sort of theory or an opinion. It's not, doesn't mean it's what they're actually going to do, but if it is end up what they're doing, it's kind of cool. So I've been analyzing the changes they've made to these cards, right? And I've seen their Twitch development stream before doing this reaction video, and I've noticed that they're doing a lot more changes to the 4 cost, where it's like under certain conditions a card could be more powerful in terms of power than what it provision cost is. Like we've seen that with so many cards already. Like we've seen cards that can do in under the right conditions, it could be 6 for 4, like 6 power for 4 provisions, whereas if you just do it the way it is, it's going to be 4 for 4, so 4 power for 4 provisions. So they're doing these conditions where if you they're doing these changes to the card where it's like if you can fulfill a certain condition, which is definitely like obviously like related to the distinguishability of the factions, like the Wild Hunt Warrior was a good example where it's a 4x4, it's a 4 for 4. If you establish dominance, it's a 6 for 4. I believe I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but I've been noticing that as well with like some of the other cards in the other factions. So that's I think part of the philosophy that they're trying to do. Another one is they're trying to sort of give off like sort of a identity to each of the factions. So we've seen that Monsters is now getting a dominant, more dominant support, and not to mention, and in sort of in reality, even sorry, not in turn, even though they don't really point this out, Thrive is also gonna get a boost as well because we're gonna see cards hopefully get more power boost, or not like power increases like in terms of buffs. So the other factions are going to that's sort of going to come across in the other factions as well when they start doing their changes for those cards, which you guys will see in part 2. But that's sort of what I see them doing, and I actually like it because they're finally giving an identity to some of the cards. Like, and they're keeping certain abilities to be neutral because I think there's so much potential with like dominance, with fees from Syndicate, fees, tributes. With Skellige, I believe it's Bloodthirst and Berserk. With Nilfgaard, I believe it's Assimilate, and I can't think of any others. With scoia'tael, it's Harmony. But yeah, we're talking about those abilities that are or keywords that are very unique to those factions. I think they're going to start working on those more, and those cards with like the basic abilities or like with the abilities that could be put in neutral cards have been completely replaced with one that's more specific to their faction. And even if they do get like a regular ability, for example, like an example I'd like to see change is like the Fangs of the Empire, right now it's just deploy, give an enemy unit poison. I'd like to actually see a change like that if we're gonna follow this philosophy, to like, let's say, I don't know, if they feel a certain condition, which I can't really think of the top of my head right now, like let's say if you have a card that's not from your starting deck, give an enemy unit poison and still make it a 4/4/4, you know what I mean, like an ability like that. So that kind of helps out with Assimilate in a way, so that kind of makes status Assimilate kind of a thing if Fangs of the Empire gets changed like that. I already saw the stream, so obviously Fangs of the Empire did not get touched, but that's sort of what I'm leaning towards when we're talking about this change that they're trying to make into how they want to see what the game looks like in the future. Again, that's just an opinion. It's not so much it's what I think they're thinking about. I could be completely wrong, but we'll see in the future updates and stuff, or in future gameplay. So that was part 1 of the video. I'm not gonna quite do the outro just yet because we have a second part to go to. I'll be in different clothes because I'll be doing that recording tomorrow. So I'll see you guys in part 2.